Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno's Best Comics of the Week, and this is a show where I go least favorite to Best Pick of the Week. Now, another kind of lighter week for me. Last week I had a very light week with like 8 books, and that's the lightest I've had in a really long time. And then this week it is the 5th Wednesday, so it's obviously going to be lighter, but there were a lot of big books this week, especially from DC. But overall I had 12 books, and let's get started. Number 12 for me, this is the last part of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers creative team, Marguerite Bennett and Simone Di Meo. So they've been on the title for a while. Ryan Parrott and Danielle, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, is going to be taking over the Mighty Morphin comic book. And I'm really excited for that. I really like Ryan's voice a lot on Power Rangers, and I just haven't been liking this version of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Wasn't a huge fan of the team, and I think I really hit the nail on the head with the last issue. I don't really like cosmic stories, and this was such a cosmic book, and we even get to see that with the Zords in the end here. Which probably was the coolest part, was seeing like this galactic Zords coming together in these spaceships, but just not a huge fan of that type of storytelling. And again, couldn't really get into these characters as much as I wanted to. Always felt really cluttered to me, and just never really liked the dialogue. But the artwork I feel like did get stronger as the series went on. But I never really connected to that new Ranger either. So overall I'm going to give this one 2.5 stars. Like I said, it just wasn't for me, but I am really looking forward to seeing the next chapter for Power Rangers. But moving on to number 11, which is Heroes in Crisis, issue 9, the last issue of Heroes in Crisis. Now, I am going to do a whole entire video this Saturday. It'll be posted on if Heroes in Crisis was worth it. So I won't go like too much into detail on that section, because I'll talk about it in that video. But did I like this issue? Obviously, not really, because it is my number 11 pick. I actually really like this event up to a point. I would say probably issue 5 or so. I'm like, all right, let's, pick up the pieces here. Let's go a little quicker. And once the Wally stuff started to happen, especially that last issue, I just didn't really agree with the path the character took, and I just didn't really like the murder mystery that much. So this issue, obviously it's picking up the pieces from there, and we get to see interviews from all these different heroes, which kind of got repetitive for me. It was cool for the first page, and it's cool to see your favorite heroes, like Stephanie was in there, Cassie was in there. We have a lot of heroes, and not just A-list heroes. You have B-list, C-list, so that was cool, but it got a little tiresome after a while. And honestly, I just didn't like our detectives that much. I felt like they understood everything really quickly, and I didn't feel like they worked for it enough, because they just kind of ended up getting the answers out of happenstance. Like, for us as audience members, we saw it because we saw it through Wally's eyes, not really the detective's eyes. And I think that's why Heroes in Crisis kind of fails for me as a detective story. And obviously just don't really like the direction they're taking Wally. Artwork wasn't even as strong as it usually is. I felt like some of the eye work could have been a little bit more expressive in this issue, but I do feel like the artwork overall is good. So I'm going to give this 2.5 stars. Again, I'll kind of talk more about that in that topic video this weekend, but just wasn't a fan of how this series kind of wrapped up. But let's start talking about my number 10, which is another big DC book, and that's Superman, the Leviathan Rising, issue 1. And really, the reason this is a bit lower is because I don't think it's worth $10. Now, I like Superman. I'm not a hardcore Superman fan, but I do like Superman, and I've been reading Superman in Action Comics, obviously for a while, but I'm currently reading the Bendis stuff, so I know what's going on, but I just haven't been loving the Bendis stuff, and this is, very Bendis Superman. I just didn't really feel attached to any of the story, and I actually like the concept of Leviathan a lot. I like the characters that he's using, but there's just no hook for me yet. I'm like, okay, and why should we be attached? I feel like everything's too secretive. It's like there's no hook yet. It's like, cool, he's this mysterious guy going after superheroes, and why should I pick this up? Besides, it's Superman. And later on, we'll talk about a Superman story I think that does it correctly a little bit more, or talks about Superman's history a little bit better for me. And then the Jimmy stuff, I like the idea of it. I like that it's so Silver Age and out of this world and ridiculous, because that is Silver Age Silver Age Superman and Jimmy Olsen. So I like that. I even like the artwork, but I thought the dialogue was kind of heavy for a Silver Age type. Well, I wouldn't even say that, because Silver Age comics are very heavy, but I guess for a sillier comic, I don't personally like that heavy of dialogue, and it was just a bit heavy for me. And then the Supergirl stuff, I have not been invested in throughout the whole entire DC Rebirth. I just did not like the direction of her story, and I still continue not to like it. And this issue doesn't, change my mind. And another weird thing is to see that we get the first story, which is the main story with Superman and Lois and the Leviathan stuff, and then they have the Jimmy and Supergirl stuff, and then they continue the Superman and Lois stuff. It just felt like really jarring. Why didn't you just finish the Superman and Lois story in one half, and then Jimmy Olsen, then Supergirl is like the backup stories? So I thought that was kind of weird, but the artwork is gorgeous, and that's kind of why it's a little higher than like Heroes in Crisis this week. So overall, gonna give this 2.5 stars. I personally don't think it's worth $10, but I think it depends how much of a hardcore Superman fan you are. All right, moving on to number 9. I'm actually upset to see this so low, and that is the Amazing Spider-Man issue 22, and honestly, it was a bit of a lackluster ending for me. Just Craven, I thought, gave up way too quickly. I understand he kind of learned his lesson, saying, oh, that's why Spider-Man's special, because he kind of sees the human side of everybody. And we get to see how that connects to his family, and his son ends up killing him by the end. But it was a really quick turnaround for me, and I just feel like the pacing was really off for this whole entire arc, and hopefully it could kind of jump back to what Spencer was doing before, because I've been loving Spencer's run, and I actually liked the idea of this event, but it was just way too long for me, and didn't really have a satisfying ending by the end. And artwork was okay. I'm kind of tired of Ramos' style for Spider-Man, just because we've seen it for so long. And, I like Otley on this book, so I hope we get to see him back by the next arc. So overall, going to give the Amazing Spider-Man issue 22 3 stars, and that was number 9. Alright, I'm going to take a sip of water, and then we'll move on to number 8. Alright, hold on. Alright, number 8 for me is The Magnificent Miss Marvel, issue 3. I got the Battle Lines covers, which I love. I love these covers a lot. And Magnificent Miss Marvel just hasn't been hitting it for me as much as G. Willow Wilson's run did. I love Kamala. I love Miss Marvel. But her going into space just feels off to me. And, I like the parents. I really enjoyed that they get to interact and see their daughter being a hero. And I liked the mom saying, hey, Kamala's always born to do this. But I didn't really like the space sacrifice stuff, or not sacrifice, but the space God thing, I guess we could explain it as, or like prophecy. Didn't quite care about that or that world, and I just don't want Miss Marvel in space. I like her grounded, especially for her first arc. I want to see more about her friends. I want to see more about Jersey City, because that is what makes Miss Marvel special. I know, you want to do something different, but I would say stay true to the character first, and then maybe arc 2 or 3 do something like this. So I just don't think it was a great first arc for me. I just haven't really been liking the new writer's voice yet. But I do like the artwork. I think that's been pretty solid. And Ian Herring is continuing to do the coloring, which makes everything feel very consistent from the last series. So Miss Marvel issue 3 for me gets 3 stars. And that is number 8. Alright, moving on to number 7, which is X-23 issue 12, which is the last issue of X-23, I guess, for the time being. Hopefully the series comes back at some point. But I have a feeling the creative team did not know they were ending with this issue. Because the X-Men line was ending, everything kind of has to end. And it just is really abrupt for me. You have Gabby and Laura kind of break up their family in the last issue because of their disagreements, and then Laura comes to the rescue. They save some turkeys, and Gabby's like, okay, after a couple debacles with her sister. She's like, okay, I guess we're kind of on the same page. Let's move on. I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing, honoring, my sisters that have fallen, my clones that have fallen. I just thought it was kind of too easy, the cleanup, and them forgiving each other. I didn't expect it to be that quick, and I wanted a stronger conversation between the two. But I did like the action. I somewhat like that there's animal versions of the projects that they were based on. So I kind of like that. It was also kind of silly, but I love the artwork for this book. And overall, I'm going to give this one 3.5 stars. And I do like that Gabby ended up taking the name Scout because of her sister that passed. So I thought that was cool. So I'm going to give that 3.5 stars, and that is number 7. All right, moving on to number 6, which is Detective Comics issue 2, the annual. This is a story about the Reaper, so it's kind of cool to see an old school character, it seems like, from the Batman mythos come back in a different form, and it felt very classic Batman, as Batman has to be the, Bruce Wayne as a mask as he does his Batman actual adventure, and the Reaper is an interesting villain where he's the more hardcore version of Batman, where he actually kills people in the night. So I enjoyed that. I thought it was a pretty solid story. My only, thing I disliked about it is that it's right in the middle of this Arkham Knight story. So it feels weird to have this one shot and be like, oh, but also we are continuing Arkham Knight in the next issue. It kind of feels like, okay, why did we need this wedge? Why didn't you wait until the arc was over to have this story? So, I'm sure just because that's why when the annual was supposed to come out, so you just needed a story like this. But why not conclude the Arkham Knight story here and then start the Reaper story as like a one-shot or a 2-part story in the regular series? So I just felt like the placement was a little weird. But, overall I'm going to give this one 3.5 stars. I did have fun with it, and if you're looking for just a classic Batman read, because we haven't really had a classic Batman read in a while, definitely read that one. Alright, moving on to number 5, which is the Immortal Hulk, issue 18. This wasn't as high as some of the previous issues. I do think it was a little slower, but I did like seeing the build-up to this monster battle between Bruce and his family. We get to see Betty as this, falcon bird monster, which I'm super excited about and definitely was my favorite panel here. And then we get to see the monster that... what's his name? Rick Jones. Rick Jones ends up becoming. So we are getting to see Hulk's family being these monsters as well, and how that's affecting their life. And also like a little glance of who, the Great Hulk's version is, who Joe is. So that was kind of cool. But it's a little bit of a slower burn for me, this issue, but still the monster book that we all know and love. And it's cool to get a glimpse of those other characters. So overall, I'm going to give Immortal Hulk issue 18 3.5 stars, and that is number 5. Alright, moving on to number 4, which is Smooth Criminals, issue 6. A lot of fun here. I love the humor for this book, especially where we get to see our characters kind of staking out, figuring out, all right, how are we going to steal from this museum? And then there's like an engagement happening right next to them. So there's just a lot of laughter and fun, but also a lot of cool espionage story here, where we actually get to see our heroes try to steal what they need to steal, and it doesn't work out. So we get to see that they get arrested by the end. So definitely escalating the story, and it's just a ton of fun. I really like these characters and their chemistry between each other, and also it's just like a really fun espionage series if you like espionage stories. So Smooth Criminals issue 6 gets 4 stars for me, and that is number 4. Moving on to number 3, which is Angel, issue 1. I thought this was an extremely solid first start here from the opening, which is a flashback of, someone who was a hunter, someone who was a slayer, and who becomes a vampire, it looks like. And her name was Mira, so I'm very curious to see if this is a character we know, or, a new character. And I thought that was a really cool opening, and I love the artwork here. Really great. Great facial expressions, and really throughout the whole entire issue there's some great art. And then we turn to Angel from the present, seeing how social media is affecting our kids. And I thought his commentary was really interesting, how vapid our society can be, even though he's a vampire and he's lived all these years, and he's kind of seeing how culture is shifting and how we see ourselves in a different way and how hard we are on ourselves. So this kind of leads into who the villain is, and this girl who's, utilizing social media as the daughter of this boy that Angel saved a long time ago, who's now a grown man, dying because his daughter is like influenced by magic or something. So I thought it was a really interesting start, and I just really liked Angel's commentary overall. I think there's just some really good monologue throughout this issue. So I thought it was a really good start, and overall I'm going to give this 4 stars. So that is number 3. Moving on to number 2, which is the Fantastic Four, issue 10. This is how you do a tie-in. So you have some of the War of the Realms stuff. They're going to attack Yancey Street. But it's also progressing the story of the Fantastic Four, where Valeria and Franklin don't really feel like they fit in. They don't know who is in Yancey Street. They just don't feel comfortable. It's not their home. And then they realize, oh, this is why Ben loves this place, and ends up teaming up with Yancey Street to go up against these, these giants and elves from another dimension. So I had a lot of fun, and I just especially liked the character development and character work with Franklin and Valeria. Franklin, again, just not feeling that he belongs anywhere, and figuring out his place and how to use his powers. And then I just like Valeria and Luna from the Devil Dinosaur, so Moon Girl series, which I don't even know if that series is still going on, but who's the smartest? I thought that was a lot of fun. Like, who is the smartest? And Reed's like, I'm just happy that kids are loving science, and you guys could be the smartest. It's okay. You're the way of the future. So I had a lot of fun with that and their interactions. I hope we get to see more of that. And the artwork was really solid with the action and the way that the heroes utilize their powers, and even like kind of the street smarts that the Yancey Street citizens, or I guess residents, end up using. So I thought that was fun too. So overall, a really solid issue, and a really good tie-in to War of the Realms for me. So overall, I'm going to give that 4 stars, and that is number 2. Moving on to number 1, and that is Doomsday Clock, issue 10. I love this issue. One of my favorite comic issues in general. One of my favorite series is Watchmen, but one of my favorite issues is the Dr. Manhattan issue, where we get to see him on Mars and learn more about his life, and this really existential story about his life. And we get to see that here through the eyes of the DC Universe. And I thought it was really interesting how he explained multiverses and how it's possible for Superman to be introduced in the 30s, but also be the Superman that we know and the rebooted version, because hey, these heroes always have to stay a younger age. They're not going to be 80 years old, or obviously if comics are going to survive, they're not going to be 100 years old. They have to kind of de-age them a bit. And we even see that with what they're doing with Life Story of Spider-Man. It's like, hey, how about if Spider-Man did age with the comic books? What would happen? So we kind of see how DC has been able to work around that, and how important Superman was to this mythos, this world. And that's why I was saying, like, compared to Superman Leviathan, this is the type of Superman I like. What is the idea of Superman, and how does his history affect the world? So, and just the idea of hope, DC saying, yeah, we know the New 52 kind of wasn't about that, and we're showing, we know that's our theme. That's the theme of our world, and we're going to stick true with that. So, and I also just love Dr. Manhattan's mind frame, because he is very much this godlike creature, just like Superman, but they're both very different. And I love the description of him saying, well, Superman's the man of action, I'm the man of no action, and that makes me the villain. And when you think about it in this kind of godlike creature, it's like, well, God, he doesn't meddle, but he's always looking after you. And in this context, it's like, well, he was, Dr. Manhattan was always looking after everybody, but he never meddled. So what does that mean for obviously this version of God? So I really enjoyed that, and I enjoy the the commentary there. And yeah, overall, I thought it was just a really great story that I think really tapped into what I liked about that issue of Dr. Manhattan. And obviously, it's supposed to kind of have a similar narrative to that, and then even get to meet this new character of an actor who ends up dying and gets murdered, but by the end he survives. So what, or I guess becomes alive again. So what does that mean for Doomsday Clock? So I really enjoyed this one. I'm curious to see where this is going to take us, where it's going to end up taking the DC Universe. So I thought it was really cool. Overall, I'm going to give that 4.5 stars. Artwork was gorgeous and a really great story if you're a Dr. Manhattan fan. And I would say if you're just a DC Universe comic book fan, I think it's a really intriguing story. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Definitely go follow me on Twitter and Facebook, and definitely go check out my comics like Father Like Daughter and They Call Her the Dancer. And every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time is Frontline Live, where we discuss our favorite comics and comic book news. So be sure to check that out as well. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Bye, guys.